How's it going, everybody? This is Ask Me Anything About Politics. So, if you got any questions about politics, just let me know in the chat, and I'll do my best to give you a great answer. I know that politics can be really intimidating when you're first trying to learn about it. I know that things are really confusing now. I think there's a ton of misinformation out there, and it can be really difficult to parse what's real and what's accurate information and what isn't. So, this is the place where you can ask all those questions. And I'll do my best to give you an answer that is sincere and as unbiased as I can manage. This is not a show for fighting. This is not a show for arguing or debating. This is just about engaging in good faith on politics and trying to make sure that we all are living in a shared reality where we all agree on what's actually going on in our country and our government. Carmine, we are indeed back. Boy, oh boy, what a pain in the ass getting suspended for a week was. But we're here, baby, and I'm answering your questions about politics. So hit me up in the comments if you got any questions about politics, and I'll do my best to give you a great answer. I know that politics can be really intimidating when you're first trying to learn about it. It can be like trying to learn a new language because there's all these different three-letter agencies and abbreviations and terms that people just assume that you know. So there's no such thing as a dumb question here. You can ask me anything that you like. It could be as simple or as complicated as you would like. Annoying Pilot Vlogger says the thing every politician has in common in my lifetime: the cost of living gets higher. Have you started probing, Annoying Pilot Vlogger? Have you started trying to deconstruct why the cost of living keeps on getting higher, regardless of who is in charge? Because I have a theory, but I want to know if you have a theory. Ace says, why does the military go along with what Trump does? Because the Trump administration, starting in his second term, has been very disciplined about removing people from the military who could potentially stand up to him. So he fired the heads of the Joint Chiefs, he fired the heads of all the various branches of the military, and now it is just sycophants and people that are worried about doing their job. So they're getting deployed to U.S. cities, and they just kind of have to do that. Timmy 2012 says, "Do you think Israel might have something over leading members?" Um, Potentially, but I think it probably just makes a lot more sense that Israel, that APAC is an extremely well-funded organization, and they have been very effective at, unelecting people that stand up against them. Lisa, good to see you again. Carmine says, "Who is Murdoch?" Who are you talking? You mean like Murdoch, like the guy that owns Fox News and all that shit? Ace says, "Why did we get the worst Kennedy out of all the Kennedys?" Whose joke was that? Who said that joke recently? Was that Mark Maron? Who said that we got the worst Kennedys? Roan 0007, good to see you again. Annoying Pilot Vlogger says, "There's always excuses from both sides, always blaming each other. I never see any actual help for the common man." Yes, but why? Annoying Pilot Vlogger, like, you're telling me that both parties are equally responsible for the cost of living increases and they're always blaming each other, but have you started to think about why the cost of living is always going up, no matter who's in charge? Because, again, I would love to tell you why, but I want to know if I'm just going to be talking to a brick wall. Right now, it seems like brick wall is the most likely. Bill Skin says, "No, the leaders when Biden was in office were snowflakes. Military has to be a certain way." That is inaccurate. Bill Skin. Ace says, "Do you think what is going on in D.C. will spread to other places?" That is what the Trump administration is going to do. Whether they'll be successful is it's up to people like you and me, to do the work of putting pressure on our elected representatives and protesting and striking and boycotting and making our phone calls and visiting their offices and stuff like that. Carmine says, "I think he met with Vance. I haven't checked yet." Yeah, I don't know who that is. TY says, "Unpopular opinion, Donald Trump is equal, if not superior, to Jesus Christ of Nazareth." I think it's an inaccurate opinion. Bilskin says, "Of course they are. They're all corrupted." No, that is inaccurate. And I really don't care for that kind of both sides cynicism on my channel. Annoying Pilot Vlogger says, "No, man, I'm not a brick wall." Okay, well then tell me why you think the cost of living keeps on going up. And don't say because our politicians are feckless. Like, there are real reasons why. And if you want to know why, then ask. I'll tell you. Gingy says, "I hear Vacation Vance is getting booed in England, and him and the wife are fighting in public." You love to see it. Annoying Pilot Vlogger says, "I understand inflation is a thing and stuff. I am curious what you say about the matter." Excellent. Excellent, annoying pilot vlogger. I will happily elucidate you. Let me get to these last 3 questions. Ben Chow says, do you think the guy that made the keys was an idiot or really smart? What keys are you talking about? Soul Reaper says, every time raising minimum wage has come up, the Republican Party has voted no since the 80s. That is accurate. Billskin says, you're too democratic, man. You have to be in the middle, and you can't be, but it's okay. I don't think there's any justification for being a centrist when the right wing of this country is so extreme. Keith Schultz says, did Hillary take anxiety medicine to control her wild mood swings? I saw no evidence that Hillary had mood swings. Billskin says, it started when Biden was in office. The price of food going up. The system is broken. Let's see here. Annoying pilot vlogger. No, you don't have to apologize for anything, my guy. Billskin, that is inaccurate, what you just said. The cost of living started going up during the Biden administration, but it wasn't caused by the Biden administration. So, annoying pilot vlogger, here's the reason why cost of living keeps on going up. It is because the billionaire class is making that so. Because of the conservative doctrine of allowing businesses to monopolize, everything is basically owned by the same 10 companies. And so there's no more market competition or incentive to try to keep prices down. Additionally, during the Trump administration, the fact that they let COVID run rampant all over the globe meant that all the supply chains got fucked, which meant that supply decreased and demand increased. So now you have things like housing shortages because, people have put political pressure on developers to not develop in their neighborhoods because they're trying to increase their property values and make sure that their houses keep on getting more expensive and shit like that. It has absolutely nothing to do with Democrats being worse than Republicans, because Democrats actually have tried to address this issue. It's the Republican Party that keeps on doing things to try to make it worse, and it's Republican Party doctrine of allowing the billionaire class to accumulate so much money and power, and to be able to consolidate their power in conglomerates and mega corporations and shit like that. That has made it so the free market has not been able to adjust or keep prices down at all. Thank you for your question, annoying pilot vlogger. Dunk says there are 756 billionaires in the U.S. I don't know if that is accurate, but that sounds about right. Bank says printing of money. That is the problem why our cost of living goes up. That is inaccurate, Bank. Lisa Salas says the Declaration of Independence states that the people have a right to overthrow a rogue government. Does it say that, Lisa? Billskin says it's both sides, Republicans and Democrats that are to blame. No, Billskins, that is inaccurate. And if you don't ask a question, I'm going to boot you. I'm tired of your both sides cynicism. Raoul 007 says, who is going to pay 50% tariff on us? We are the consumers. Corporal Fly says, hello again. How's the Lion's Den been? Hey, no, it's been okay. RK, hello. Good to see you again. Bank says, you are incorrect, man. You have no idea what you're talking about. I do know what I'm talking about. And that's not a question, Bank. So you are out of here. Alrighty, let's see here. Julia says the Congress needs removed. Yeah, that's what elections are for, Spawn says you have to be against most sides. No, you don't. If you got one guy who is, a thief who's stealing bread for a starving family, and you got one dude who is a serial killer, it is fine to be more on the side of the guy who stole bread for his family. The Democratic Party is way better than the Republican Party. The Republican Party is way worse than the Democratic Party. And so while the Democratic Party has its flaws and has made some big mistakes, they are still way better than the Republican Party. Annoying pilot blogger says, that was an interesting explanation. Do you think legislation to stop insane rent hikes? Appreciation might happen someday. So it's a difficult problem, annoying pilot blogger. So I don't know if you read Abundance by Ezra Klein, but he talked about some of the issues that we have with trying to build more in, a democracy where you've got one party that is trying to solve a lot of different problems. The Democratic Party wants not just to solve the problem of decreasing housing supply, but also of green technology and representation and stuff like that. And so they end up having these, these city-run contracts that are like, in order to build on this property, you have to hire a construction company that the leadership is at least 50% female and people of color and shit like that, And while that is it is a great, a noble cause, sometimes you kind of have to put the pedal to the metal when you're in an emergency and shit like that. But that's one issue. That's like one issue of many that is the reason why, housing development has been steadily declining for the past 2 decades. The solution to that problem is is, it's a lot of different things. The short version is we need to elect people that are actually going to try to solve the problem, and we need to be cool with them trying to solve the problem. A lot of the issue that we have in politics is switching back and forth from the Republican Party, who doesn't do things and only tries to break things, and the Democratic Party that tries to solve things but tries to do it in a way that is very fair and equitable, and that means that it's a slower, more expensive process sometimes. Kiki says, "Why do people fall for this? You know, all the politicians are actors." No, they're not. Cam Bear Speedstar says, "Who'd you vote for? Democrats up and down the ballot." Corporal Fly says, "You want to see in the near future?" No thanks. That sounds terrifying. Rowan says, "What's your views on Trump's tariff war? It's stupid and it's going to increase cost of living for Americans." All right. Ace says, "What got you into politics as much as you did?" I waited tables for 12 years, and I was constantly seeing different examples of how working class people like myself were getting fucked over by the system. And I started looking into who were the politicians who were responsible for this, who were the politicians that were trying to solve this. And 99% of the time it was, oh, Republicans bad guys, Democrats good guys in all of these issues. And so yeah, and I just started getting more into learning about the process and reading nonfiction books about political power and stuff like that. Cam Bear Speed Stars says, "Do you hate Trump?" I don't hate anybody. Javi says 99% of the time it's Israel. That is inaccurate. Brett Allison says that's the problem right there. You hate the Republicans and let the Dems get away scot-free. That is inaccurate, Brett Allison. I am trying to make it so that we judge the Democratic Party as loosey-goosey as we judge the Republican Party, because the Republican Party is making these massive fucking errors all the time, and they are never suffering electoral consequences for them. They let 9/11 happen, and yet we still view them as the party of national security. All of the major stock market crashes and economy crashes have happened under Republican presidents, but we still view them as being the party of responsible financial government choices. They let the economy crash, violence spike. They're allowing Trump to fucking run ramshot over the entire country, and people are still like, I don't know, maybe we'll see how I feel when the midterms come up. Like it's not. We never give Democrats any credit. We never give Republicans any blame. And this idea of the Democratic Party being worse than it is has skewed our political reality to the point where we judge the sins of the Democratic Party 1,000 times harder than we judge the sins of the Republican Party. Ace says, "I wish a third party won just to make the statement that tired of the normal, so both parties change." Ace, there is already a mechanism for the parties to change. That is the primaries. You just have to do the work of electing them in the primary, and you have to recognize that not everybody agrees with you. I needed to do more work. I wanted Katie Porter to win the primary for senator in California, but she didn't. I needed to do more work to make that happen. But I still voted for Adam Schiff because I was like, you know what? More people voted for Adam Schiff than Katie Porter, so I need to accept the fact that maybe not everybody here feels the same way about Katie Porter and Adam Schiff that I do. Claire Jones says, "You think SCOTUS will take the Kim Davis case?" Absolutely. Jessica says, "D's have been sabotaged from within by R-funded fake Democrats. Houses for payoffs." There's some accuracy there, Jessica. I believe so. DJ Moore, break, please. Good to see you again. Let's see here. Corporal Fly, you dodged my question. I just want to know what your hopes are in the near future. You said you want to see what's in the near future, Corporal, and I did answer that question. Lauren, good to see you again. Diego Vargas, do you think the United States will gain its leadership and respect after Trump leaves? It'll take a lot of time and work to do that, Diego Vargas, but yeah, I don't. I mean, it'll be better when he leaves. Claire Jones says, "I don't think she can overturn gay marriage." I mean, she can't, but the extremely partisan and radical right-leaning Supreme Court 100% can. The same way that they, dismantled protections for abortion access. Ace says, "There are bad in both sides, but what bad is worse and what worse can you live with is the question." That is true, Ace, and time again, we have seen that the bad of the Democratic Party is much more survivable and preferable to the bad of the Republican Party. Void Staff says, "What about states with gay marriage in their state constitution?" I mean, there will probably be a similar thing happening with Obergefell as there was with the Dobbs decision, meaning that they'll just send it back to the states. So you could be in a LGBTQ marriage in one state, and then you drive across the border, and suddenly you no longer have the privileges of being married or the tax breaks of being married or whatever. It's a fucking nightmare. Jessica, I agree with that. Nikki Columbia says, "Are we going to lose our democracy and become a dictatorship?" Nikki, that is entirely up to people like you and me. If we do the work of saving our democracy, then we will get out of it. But if people just sit around and hope for someone to come to our rescue and hope that somebody saves us, then we're fucked. Let's see here. Z Lee Live says he will not say a bad thing about Democrats. It's against his manager's guidelines. That is not accurate. I often say bad things about Democrats. I just think that it is important to have perspective and scale, where when one person is stabbing you in the throat and the other person is stealing a penny from you, it's important to recognize which one of those people is worse for you at the moment. Scrolling down to the bottom, Plastic Primate says, why young men are going to the right. Propaganda and misinformation, social media. Ace says, do you think there is any light at the end of all this? If we do the work, Ace. If not, we're fucked. Nia says, people act like we need a perfect politician that doesn't exist, but can people at least be treated as human? I completely agree with that, Nia. It is, I think, the height of egotism to expect that politicians need to mirror your beliefs perfectly and be completely flawless. Jessica says the Trump immunity decision was legal malpractice by the highest court. Completely agree with that. Nikki Columbia says, what can we, the people, do to save our democracy? So if you go to my Discord, I have there's a link in my bio. If you click the link in my bio, it'll send you to my Discord. On the Discord, I have a thread called The Work that is all the things that people like me and you should be doing to fight back against the Trump administration right now. Short version, we need to boycott and protest and put political pressure on our representatives. We need to do striking. We need to recruit people to the cause. We need to make sure that people aren't stuck in right-wing propaganda rabbit holes. We need to vote. We need to fucking vote our fucking tits off so that Democrats can run the House in 2026. We need to put political pressure on our local governments to make sure that our elections continue to be free and fair. But yeah, it's just going to take a lot of work, guys. It's a million little things. It's driving old people to the polls. It is fighting for ballot boxes and early voting and mail-in ballots and shit like that. It is fighting misinformation with your friends and family and neighbors and coworkers. It is not being cynical. It's a billion things. All right. Ark Turiman says people still believe in voting. Come on. Yeah, and the reason why we're in this situation, Ark Turiman, is because people didn't vote. We have terrible voter participation in this country. If not voting made countries better, then we would have, a perfect country because people don't vote in this country. Michael Ramirez says, do you think the people's sick will be of any values? I don't know what that means, the people's sick. Lever 2K says, thoughts on Trump-Putin meeting? It's going to be the same old shit. Trump is going to act all tough, and then he's going to suggest that Zelensky give Ukraine to Putin, and then Zelensky's going to say no, and then Trump's going to go, well, we tried, and then they're going to threaten to stop sending weapons over there, and whether or not that, I'm surprised they backed down on that so many times already and have continued sending, weapons to Ukraine, but, it is exactly what I thought, it is going to play out exactly like that, Ace says, how can you trust the voting next year with everything going on? I don't think that people should, but I think that you should put pressure on your elected representatives to have oversight into our voting systems. Stephen F112 says, what do you think about Trump's new sanctions on those who buy oil from Russia? Stephen, I got to be honest, I haven't heard too much about that, so I don't want to opine on that. Let's see here. Users have a whole bunch of numbers. Says, do you believe in the Chevron deference? If by that you mean that the Chevron decision saying that our agencies and experts are the ones who should make decisions and not judges who are not experts in those categories, then yes, I do believe that we should trust administrators and experts to make decisions and not just the Supreme Court. Ace says, what are good oversights to keep everything clean and organized? I think we need to wildly adjust our vote counting machines. I think we need to do soft audits, random soft audits. But yeah, hand counting ballots is still the best way of going about it. Danny is terrible says, thoughts on DC? Unfortunately, Trump has the legal authority to do that. And it is just another example why we should be fighting for statehood for DC. Marie, good to see you again. Diego Vargas says, how can we fight against misinformation when the media is owned by billionaires? By talking to people in real life, Diego Vargas. I think that's the only way to do it. I think we got to phone tree our way back to a shared reality where you talk to your friends and your neighbors and your coworkers and everybody that loves you already and trusts you, and then they talk to their friends and family and neighbors and coworker, and they talk to their friends and families and neighbors and coworkers, and then hopefully we can just branch out all over this country and get people to recognize that social media is a fucking misinformation machine that is feeding you lies to get you to vote for Republicans or get you to not vote at all. Let's be honest. Says, hey, Jared, how do you feel about the relationship of Israel and the United States? It's a terrible relationship. I think AIPAC 100% is taking advantage of loopholes in our lobbying laws. And I think that because the Netanyahu government has been found guilty of doing war crimes, and certain agencies have described what he is doing as genocide, then we should 100% stop sending them money and weapons. Diego Vargas says, I'm tired. I've tried talking to people in real life. It's almost impossible to change their opinion. Diego Vargas, there are different types of difficulty levels in that. Like trying to get a MAGA person to an AOC person is obviously, a slog. But you could potentially turn somebody from a non-voter into a voter. You could potentially turn somebody who thinks that everything they're seeing on social media is reliable and introduce doubt into their noodles. It's important to just think about this as moving the needle a little bit. Like, you don't have to do all this by yourself. You just have to push the needle a little bit. And you should check out the book The Persuaders by Anand Giridharadas. That is, you can find a link to that in my Discord. Let's see here. A says, is it true that Germany is slowly stopping their support with Israel? There's a lot going on in the EU and with Canada for trying to put pressure on Israel. And part of that is certain countries are like, oh, we're going to recognize the Palestinian state. We're going to stop supporting Israel in various ways, well, Let's agree. Let's be honest. As I agree with you 100%, I can't believe the United States high figures are being controlled by a third party. I don't believe they're being controlled, but I do think that AIPAC is a very influential organization because they have a lot of money, and the ground is littered with the figurative bodies of politicians who tried to stand up to AIPAC in Israel. Ben says, why are the pro-right more supportive of Israel? For a couple of different reasons. Number one, they are also worried about AIPAC funding primary challengers. They prefer to support an Israeli state in the Middle East because people that live in Israel are whiter than the people in the surrounding area, and a lot of Republicans are racist. And also, there is a certain sect of the extreme right wing in this country that are Christian extremists who believe that part of bringing about the rapture is Israel is Jewish people taking over all of the Middle East, and so they want to empower Israel to take over the Middle East so that they can all get fucking zipped up to heaven. Ace says, how do you think we should protect kids online but yet still keep everyone's free speech rights? That is a massive question, Ace, and unfortunately I don't have enough to give you on that. Alrighty. Corporal says, you want to see in the near future? I don't want to see in the near future because it sounds terrifying. But my hopes for the near future are that people rise up against the fascist Trump administration and that Democrats win the midterms and that we can start undoing some of the damage that this Republican administration is causing. Ace, I already did that one. Supreme Court decision should only apply to everyone when it's a human rights issue. I don't know about that. Let's be honest. Says, do you think Iran is actually making weapons of mass destruction? They 100% are trying to make nuclear weapons. Let's be honest. And us bombing their sites has done nothing except for delay them a little bit. Not sure. Says, thoughts on the UAE, Kuwait, Jordan, Syria not allowing Palestine support? Not sure. I gotta be honest. I don't really know about those countries' various attitudes towards Palestine. So yeah, I'm so sorry about that. I wish I could give you more. All right, everybody. Excellent questions so far. Thank you for being here. We are not done yet. We're not even at half hour yet. But whenever there's a pause in the questions, I'd like to tell everybody how much I appreciate them and just update them on my schedule and stuff like that. So that is what we're doing here. Marie says, how much of Party 2025 has been implemented? I saw an article recently that says that it's about 2/3 implemented, Marie. So that's terrifying. Ace says, the thing with Iran making nuclear weapons is they only making them because others have them. I mean, that is part of the justification is, North Korea doesn't get bombed because they have a nuclear weapon. So maybe if we have a nuclear weapon, we won't get bombed. Let's Be Honest says, do you think Israel has weapons of mass destruction even though they are not part of the pack? Does not Israel have nuclear? I thought we already knew that Israel had nuclear weapons, but I don't. I could be wrong about that. I for sure thought that they were one of the like 10 nuclear powers in the world, but I could be wrong about that. Maybe I'm misremembering. So yeah, thanks for being here, everybody. Diego Vargas, people in the South would vote D if they knew benefits wouldn't help minorities. Racism is expensive. That is accurate, Diego Vargas. Sorry for Tomorrow says, should they have them? No. Do I get why they want them? Yes. I mean, I don't think anybody should have nuclear weapons, Ace says, have we tried to get rid of all the nuclear weapons and how did it go? So getting rid of nuclear weapons is a process. I have 1,000 nuclear weapons. You have 1,000 nuclear weapons. I'm not going to throw all of mine in the garbage because maybe you don't throw all the yours in the garbage. Maybe you save one, So instead we go, okay, well, how about we get rid of 50 nuclear weapons each this year? And then we do, and then we check and we see, okay, you've only got 950 nuclear weapons. I've only got, all right, this is cool. This is working out great. How about we get rid of 100 nuclear weapons this year? And then on and on and on. That ended when Vladimir Putin decided that he was going to get a fucking hard-on for destroying America because he didn't like Barack Obama or some shit. And so then he started ramping up tensions against America. And then Trump got elected because of Russia as well. And then Trump started saying, we don't need fewer nuclear weapons. We need more nuclear weapons. And so he started making more nuclear weapons, and Russia started making new nuclear weapons, and now everybody's like, okay, now we're in a nuclear arms race again. So, thank you, Russia, and thank you, Trump, for all that garbage. Oh, Sorry for Tomorrow says, overall, I for sure think no one should have them. Agree. Diego Vargas says, after the Civil Rights Act, they closed pools in every town in the South to not share them with black people. That is accurate. Let's be honest. Do you think the United States attacking Iraq was a part of a bigger plan, 9/11 and such? That feels a little conspiracy theory-y to me, let's be honest. Hoster says, there's a website that tracks it. Last I looked, it was 48%. I don't know what that means. Let's see here. Ace says, do you think people should play into the racism? Do you think Democrats should play into the racism when getting South to vote when their policies will help all people? I think that the Democratic Party has been hurt by what the general public sees as an overuse of the word racism and an overly sensitive populace that believes that everything is racist. Because in reality, everything is racist, but it's varying degrees of racism. So some things are a little bit racist, like just, your grandfather not calling them Asian people using a different word. And then some people are big racists, like David Duke and people in the fucking KKK and shit like that. And then there's many subtle levels, like, in between there. But we just use the one word racism for everything. And so, people on the right have galvanized around this idea that, everything is racist and, blah, 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 blah. So, yeah, I think that it's important to be honest about which policies and which politicians are actively trying to hurt and marginalize communities. I think that you can have a substantive and nuanced message that acknowledges that, but also focuses on they are using race to distract you. They are using race to justify taking your money and making your life worse and putting poison into your drinking water and the air that you breathe and ruining your children's education and their future and giving everybody that you know cancer. That is part of their ploy. And so, yeah, let's do what we can to fight racism, you and I together. Like, we can agree that everybody should be treated equally, regardless of the color of their skin. They should be able to have the same job opportunities and housing opportunities and medical opportunities as you and I. But, that is, I lost my train of thought. Regardless, the Republican Party is fucking you. That's the end result of that statement. All right. Die says, hi. Says, many members of both parties do not care about their voters at all. Yeah, but it's different. Die. It's different on the Republican side as the Democratic side. Like, on the Democratic side, they have a really good platform, and some of the elected representatives actually don't give a shit about doing it. On the Republican side, they have a really shitty platform. And so even the ones that are trying to do good end up doing bad because they have a shitty platform. Sorry for the Naro says we need options and not to settle on who most aligns with us. Yeah, I completely agree. Politics is about addition, not subtraction. We need to build coalitions. Diego Vargas says the robber barons are ruining our country. Elon Musk is the John D. Rockefeller over time. That is accurate. Let's see here. Prod says opinion on James Tallarico. He's that Democrat in Texas, correct? I've seen some video clips of him. He seems all right to me. You know, a lot of politicians, they sound like dorks, and they sound robotic, and I think that that is fine. You know, I think it is fine that they do that. I think it is weird that we, for some reason, only judge Democratic politicians on how cool they seem when they're on camera, when the right has people like fucking Ted Cruz in it and Lindsey Graham, and insert every fucking Republican politician up to and including Donald Trump. They're fucking weird ass on camera personalities, but for some reason we don't like it when Kamala Harris laughs at shit. You know, whew, good lord. All right, scrolling down to the bottom. Swiftly Engaged says, right, along for the days when politicians weren't crazy. Completely agree with that. Die says, hi, says, it sounds like Newsom is grifting lately with the LLC he has opened in his wife's name. I don't know anything about that. Ace says, yeah, fuck racism, but I was saying into the South, racism to get votes, known there. Ace, sorry, I can't really read that question. Doesn't really track with me. Sorry for tomorrow says the fact Elon is on track to become a trillionaire should terrify everybody. Completely agree with that. Let's see here. Joe Bojones says Democrats have no talent. When AOC is the best you've got, you're in trouble. That's not a question, Jobo Jones. It seems like you're trying to start a fight with me, and the things that you're saying are stupid. So you're out of here. All right, scrolling down to the bottom. We're all caught up. Fantastic. So just to let everybody know, we're going to be continuing the live stream for like another half hour. But me and the missus are going to be traveling for about a week. So this is going to be the only show this week, and then I will be back. Let's see here. I'll be back on the 25th of August. Swiftly Engaged says, now Gavin Newsom is posting like Trump, and Trump is normalizing his shenanigans. Yeah, I mean, you know, it's cute. I don't mind Gavin Newsom trolling Trump like that. Lauren says, fun, where are we heading? We're going to go visit my mom in Pennsylvania. Dice says, hi, says, what do you think are some solutions if they are talking about overturning Obergefell? Why can't Citizens United be overturned? So all of these things can be done, Di. It just depends on who is in power. So we're supposed to have a balanced power in this country where you have the executive branch and the judiciary and the legislative. But under the Trump administration, they are all moving towards one fascistic goal of being a party run by the billionaire class for the billionaire class. And it's trying to make all of our lives fucking miserable and trying to make all of our lives more complicated and sad. And, you know, it's a whole fucking thing. So how do we fix this? We have to elect Democrats, because if we elect Democrats, then we have people to stand up to the extreme right-wing Supreme Court. And if we have enough Democrats and we have enough good Democrats, then we could potentially expand the Supreme Court or impeach Supreme Court justices that we feel have been acting psychotically. You know, it all comes down to the work that we do. Because if you just sit around and wait, or you just try to retweet your way into a better government, then the bad people are just going to keep on winning and fucking winning and fucking winning. The rich don't sleep. They do not stop. They themselves sleep, but they pay people to not sleep for them. So they're constantly pushing the needle towards fascism and authoritarianism and deconstructing the government and taking away workers' protections and poisoning and fucking allowing the pollution to happen rampant, you know. And part of that project is electing politicians like Republicans who will assist them in their goal of dismantling the government and getting rid of regulations and installing Supreme Court justices that will side in favor of them, of the billionaire class and what they want, you know. JC says Democrats just had power and did nothing. That is inaccurate, JC. The Democratic Party did a lot of good during the Biden administration. So ask a question or you're out of here. Dan Blackard, excellent to see you again. Badger75 says, what laws need to be tweaked so not another Trump? I think we probably need to give the Federal Election Commission a little bit more teeth so that we don't allow rampant cheating to happen in the future. I think that we need more. I think we need to fund education more so that people don't get tricked into voting for people like Trump again. I think we need to regulate social media so that they have some checks and balances as opposed to just being billionaires pumping our noodles full of propaganda and misinformation, you know? Alrighty, Die High says, agreed. Are there any issues Democrats are willing to let go to appear more common sense? Honestly, Die says, hi, I don't see anything wrong with the Democratic platform. You know, maybe there are some people on the internet who are saying things that you believe are too extreme and need to rein in for more common sense. But the Democratic platform it's mild. You know, it's milk toast. It is for the benefit of the 70% of people. There's nothing in there about allowing kids to take a shit in litter boxes if they identify as cats. You know, that is just shit that you see on the internet. It's not anything that elected Democrats are doing. Alrighty, Dice High says the unions have voted Democrat and Kamala was dismissive of the head of the Teamsters. I did not find her to be dismissive of the head of the Teamsters. And honestly, even if she was, that is such a smaller crime than the way that the Trump administration handled the unions. Like, it's not an equal crime, you know? It's literally just another example of us judging the Democratic Party by a way harsher standard than we judge the Republican Party, where a Democrat will spell a word wrong, and people are like, "That's it, I'm voting for Republicans," and then the Republicans do a fucking coup, and they let 1 million people die because they threw a bunch of fucking life-saving medicine into the fire and food into the fire for some fucking reason, and then people are like, "Well, we don't like that," but the Democrats did spell that one word incorrectly. Di says, hi, says it's not entirely true. A.B. Hernandez is a boy who won every female track event this year in California. I didn't say anything about trans sports. Di says, hi. What a weird thing to bring up, my guy. Let's see here. Matt G-Man says the Democratic Party does literally everything awful the Republicans do. It is a one-party state. That is wildly inaccurate, Matt G-Man. If you don't ask a question, I will boot you because I do not care for cynical, both sides nonsense on my live stream. Sorry for Tomorrow says, as much as I want a progressive candidate, I feel like someone closer to the center has the best chance. You know, Sorry for Tomorrow, many people feel that way. Other people feel like it's that picking a centrist candidate is the reason why Democrats lose elections, that we need to lean further into a Mamdani style of progressive politicking. And I don't know what the correct answer is, but I do think that we all need to be fucking, humble enough to recognize that we might not know the answer to that question. Nothing fucking pisses me off more than somebody who is like, it's so obvious. The Democrats just need to be more to the center, or the Democrats need to be more progressive. It's not obvious. Nobody fucking knows the answer to that question. You have an opinion on it, but you don't fucking know. I'm not yelling at anybody specifically right now. I'm just yelling at a straw man that pops up in my chats regularly and really fucking fucking really rubs me the wrong way. Matchy Man says Republican president, kids in cages. And yeah, Matchy Man, I feel like what you're trying to do is try to say that Democrats put kids in cages also, but that is wildly inaccurate. Nostradamus, good to see you again. Says Southwest Airlines stop. I don't know. Let's see here. Die says hi. Says, do you want women represented by the party? I have always been. Many lesbians switched votes. I mean, I think the Democratic Party should represent everybody. It's a wide tent. That is the entire point. Truth Seeker says, are you conservative or a Democrat? I'm a Democrat. Bazin Ama says, do you support Israel? Also do a flip. No on the flip. And I support Israel the same way that I support Palestine and Germany and Italy and Antarctica. I support the citizens of every country, but I do not support the governing body of Israel the same way I do not support Hamas. Diego Vargas says, Biden ruined his legacy by funding a genocide. He had the chance to be remembered as a good man. I think that, and I think he ruined his legacy by running for a second term instead of just dipping out when he was too fucking old. Alrighty, Dan Blackwood says GOP can put people in concentration camps and Dems get shit for calling them concentration camps. Yeah, exactly. Both sides, Dan Blackwood. Both sides. All right, everybody. We're still streaming for another 20 minutes. Just letting you guys know, this is the only show this week because I'm going to be traveling. But catch me on the 25th is when I will be back next. Die says hi. It says, I'll ask you directly, is there any one Democratic platform that is disrespectful of females? Not as far as I can tell. Die says hi. Do you believe that there is something disrespectful of females in the Democratic Party? Ape God says, you're leaving us. It's not a forever goodbye. It is just a week and a half that I will be traveling. Bazin Amaha says, well, would you hold the government of apartheid of South Africa as having equal weights to Mandela? I don't know, Bazin. I don't know what that question means, and I honestly don't know the answer to that question. Triska Fawn says, good to know, I thought I was blocked. Because you didn't see me, Triska? That's because somebody reported me for misinformation, and TikTok mostly sides with me when I appeal that decision, but this time they didn't for some reason. And I suspect it is because I was talking about that fellow with the island, if you know what I mean. So yeah, yeah. And I was like, hey, what do you think I said that was inaccurate? And I got crickets back, Ape God says, I've been watching you forever and I just wish I had the funds to truly support. Ape God, you being here is support. And tell your friends, that's the only support that you gotta do. And maybe if you win the lottery, you can start, you can be a paid subscriber, or you can join my Patreon or some shit like that. Nostradamus says, do you believe there's a thing called cancel culture? I believe there's a thing called cancel culture. I don't believe that it's, like a real problem, Alrighty, Small Peener says, question, why did the Democrats throw in the towel and give us two bad candidates against Trump? The Democrats didn't give us two bad candidates against Trump. I don't know who you're referring to when you say two bad candidates. Do you mean Biden and Harris? Because Harris was a good candidate. She just didn't have enough time to win the election. She only had 107 days. And Biden was a good candidate. He won the election against Donald Trump. And the Democratic Party didn't give us either of those candidates. It was the Democratic primary that gave us those candidates. Bazin Amaha says, avoiding the issue I see. Guess I'll avoid this live. I had Blacksmith Father. I don't know how to answer your question, Bazin. I'm not avoiding you. I just don't know what that question means. Truth Seeker says, what do you think the conservative main goal is? Dismantle the government, set up a new aristocracy where them and the billionaire class are on the top, and the rest of us, the 99%, are all fucking wage slave serfs that can just go fucking die in a gutter for all they care. Nostradamus says, how do Democrats win the midterms? By people like me and you, Nostradamus, doing the work to win them the midterms. I'm tired of this narrative that we have to wait for the Democrats to do X, Y, or Z. It's up to us, guys. This is our country. This is our government. And if you want better politicians, fucking vote for them and work to get them elected. All right, Small Peener says, Hillary and Harris, neither one of them were destined to win the presidency. I guess because no one's destined to do anything, Small Peener. But Hillary and Harris were both excellent candidates. Definitely better than Trump. So I don't understand what our criticisms of them are. Jago Vargas says, what's going to happen when nobody is able to play Monopoly because billionaires already own everything? Then they get to live in a utopia with renewable energy and vertical farms that our bodies then become the fertilizer of. TYZX6er says the interest rebate on final assembly American-made vehicles is pretty cool. I don't know if that is a real thing, TY, but also ask a question or you're going to get blocked. Bomb says, why are both Democrats and Republicans passing bills to use our tax dollars to support the IDF? So the Democratic Party is more against that than the Republican Party is. And I think it is really important to mention that, because when you say both Democrats and Republicans, you are ignoring the fact that the Democratic Party is the one that was putting pressure on Israel to stop doing war crimes. The Democratic Party is the one that stopped sending 2,000-pound bombs to Israel. The Democratic Party is the one that put sanctions on illegal settlements in Israel. The Democratic Party is the one that is voting against those bills in the Senate, where all of the Republicans are letting this happen. And the Republicans are calling for ethnic cleansing and dropping nukes on Gaza and shit like that. So I think it's really important that we are clear about the nuance here, that Democrats are still better on this issue than Republicans. Alrighty, Truth Seeker says, why do you think people demonize Hillary while worshiping Trump a literal criminal? I think because for decades there was a smear campaign on Hillary Clinton ever since she was the first lady in the 90s. Right-wing media has been coming after her and Bill, and some of that stuff is bullshit, and some of it's true, but most of it is bullshit. Whereas Trump had the opposite propaganda. He had a TV show that was making it seem like he was a genius businessman. Nostradamus says not enough Democrats put enough pressure on Israel. Too many are complicit. I agree, Nostradamus, but that doesn't change the fact that the Democratic Party en masse, on net, is way better than the Republican Party on this issue. Ready. Victoria says, is it true that they are trying to overturn gay marriage? Yes, it is 100% true, Victoria. And because there is an extremely conservative supermajority in the Supreme Court, it is likely that it will be sent back to the states. So gay marriage will probably be recognized still in blue states like California and New York. But if you are a married LGBTQ couple and you drive through Alabama, you will suddenly no longer be married. Nostradamus says false equivalency doesn't win elections, though. D's are better, but we are where we are now. Nostradamus, false equivalency doesn't win elections, but it does lose elections. You know, the idea that Kamala Harris would be the same for the people of Palestine as Trump is part of the reason why she lost. And that is a false idea. It was misinformation perpetuated by people that wanted Democrats to not vote and wanted Republicans to win elections. Victoria says, that is so stupid. Why is he president? Because misinformation and propaganda and a conspiracy by the billionaire class to convince people to not vote or to vote for Republicans. Misinformation and propaganda spread via social media, which has been completely captured by the billionaire class. Nostradamus says, I agree to that principle, but if Kamala supported a ceasefire, she may have won, ? I don't know if it is as black and white as that, Nostradamus. I think that even if she had come out strong against Biden's support of the Netanyahu government, I think that she still only had 107 days to win her election. Additionally, you know, depending on what we learned from this Rockland County case, it's possible that she was never going to win that election because of, you know, the update on those computers throwing votes for her away. You know, it's a difficult thing to try to consider because propaganda and misinformation is so unbelievably strong that even when Democrats do the right thing, they get yelled at. So I'm imagining a hypothetical world where Kamala Harris came out strong and said, I do not support Biden's policy towards Israel, and when I'm president, I will hold Israel accountable for their war crimes and I will stop sending them money and weapons. And then the narrative would have been, she's an anti-Semite. And it would have been, yeah, Democrats are doing the right thing now, but they didn't in the past, and they still need to pay for those crimes. You know, I've seen this time and time again on social media where nothing that Democrats do is enough, and nothing that Republicans do is bad enough to justify voting for Democrats. You know, it's like, so yeah. So I'm not willing to go on the record and say that. Your local communist says, are you a communist? I'm not a communist or a socialist or a capitalist. I believe in a mixed model. Dongo Dor Cabeza says, how do you see the occupation of DC working out for Trump? My guess is that it is part of the frog boiling metaphor. Like, they're not going to do anything, you know, like there's not going to be an explosion of like violence or anything like that. It's going to exactly what happened in Los Angeles. There's going to be a bunch of military people walking around doing nothing, and then they're going to go back home, you know. But I think that it is to normalize the idea of Trump sending the military into American cities. I could be wrong about that, but that's my guess. Marie says, will there be a larger audit after Rockland County? We just have to wait and see, Marie. We are waiting to see how that case shapes up. Right. Thank you for all the questions, everybody. Thank you for all the likes and the shares and the gifts. I really appreciate you guys being here. Just a reminder that this is the only show this week, and I will be back after today on the 25th because I will be traveling. And if you want to reach out. My DMs are open. You can check out my Discord, and you can reach out to me there, and you can email me through my website. So just because I won't be streaming does not mean I won't be available for engagement, because the crusade does not stop. The crusade of getting more people activated and engaged and working to fix our fucking government, it does not stop when the stream stops. Right. Let's see here. Scott Clower says drop-off votes make 0 sense. What do you mean? Like drop boxes? Drop boxes are fine, Scott. Small Peener says, please give this a thought. Any support given to the two-party system is anti-minority rights. I completely disagree with that, Small Peter, because better and better is worse and worse, and worse is worse. So if one party is 60% damaging to minorities and the other party is 100% damaging to minorities, it is better to vote for the 60% party, and then we can try to change from there. Yeah, I don't agree with that whatsoever. Not even one tick. There are minorities who are sitting in concentration camps right now, fucking Alligator Auschwitz and CICOT in El Salvador, who would pray to every fucking god in existence that y'all would have voted for Kamala Harris instead. Fucking, yeah. They are way more worried about their minority rights right now than if more people had voted for Democrats. Right. Nostradamus says Dees won't support an NYC mayor because he is critical of Israel. Not all Democrats, Nostradamus. There's been some very high-profile Democrats who have come out against Mamdani, and there are a host of potential motivations for that. Some good faith, some bad faith. But the Democratic Party is the party of Mamdani. The Democratic Party is that party, and so not voting for Democrats because some Democrats said shitty things about Mamdani, whereas not voting for Democrats will elect Republicans who will make sure that there's no fucking Mamdanis anywhere, is completely self-defeating. All right. Truth Seeker says, what's your stance on immigration? Immigrants are a net positive on this country. I have no fucking idea why, besides misinformation and propaganda, people seem to think that we need to fix people coming into this country. It's like, for why? They're helping. They're doing help, guys. They're a net positive. We need more bodies in this country because our population is in decline. Birth rates are declining. But for some reason, we really got to stop immigration in this country or slow it down or something. I can see funding immigration judges. I can see funding asylum judges so that we can move people through the process more. I can see becoming a citizen more of a streamlined process, but stopping immigration from happening the way the Trump administration is doing, rounding up anybody who's brown, insisting that they are an illegal immigrant, even if they're not, even if they're citizens, even if they're veterans. Like, what the fuck problem are we solving here? People being in this country who are helping? Seems kind of stupid to me. Boy, oh boy, guys, I'm in a mood today. That is for damn sure. You guys are getting spicy, Jared. Alrighty. Destroy Indan says, how about we stop killing all the babies then, if population is declining? Destroy Indan. The problem with our population is not abortion. Abortion is not the reason why the population rate is declining. It is because the country has become a fucking nightmare and people are not confident that they can afford to have a family. And people don't feel safe having children in a world that is warming rapidly. That is not the reason why the population is declining, is because women have the rights to terminate a pregnancy that is going to ruin their lives. All right, Helmet, I am out of here. Helmet, you are out of here. Sorry, I misspoke. All right. Okay, everybody. Numbers are down today, but that is fine. All right. Yeah, what are some more things that I need to reiterate for you guys? Do the work, everybody. If you're watching this live stream, do the work, please, because I've been doing these live streams for a while now, and trying to get people more engaged and involved, and get more people to do the work so we can fucking fight back against this administration. And I am so unbelievably fucking worried that we don't have enough people doing this, and that we don't have enough bodies. And so I just truly hope that you guys will do the work, because I'm scared. I'm scared for the people that I love and the people that I care about, and my friends and family and people I've never met before. And I think that it is only us that can solve this problem. Truth Seeker says, do you have a YouTube channel? I do have a YouTube channel. Let's see here. Anthony Drummond says, the AE was a dog whistle? Do you think the ad was a dog whistle for eugenics? I have no idea. I honestly think the rhetoric around that whole thing was kind of stupid, But yeah, I don't really give a shit. I think that any celebrity, any rich person who is part of the MAGA agenda, whether it is Sydney Sweeney or American Eagle or fucking Chick-fil-A or In-N-Out hamburgers, I think we need to respond in kind with boycotts and strikes and protests, and letting them know that that is not fucking okay. It is not okay to donate to a Republican Party that is openly doing fascism and that is putting people in fucking concentration camps and stomping on our rights and removing habeas corpus and fucking trying to change history and, attacking the media and attacking institutions of higher learning and consolidating power and removing checks and balances. Like, you do not get my dollars. And I know that's not going to hurt you that much, In-N-Out Burger or Chick-fil-A or whatever, but I will be able to fucking sleep at night, not going to see a movie with fucking Sydney Sweeney in it because she's a fucking registered Republican, Alrighty, Nostradamus says Sydney Sweeney is MAGA. She is a registered Republican in Florida. She has MAGA family members. We know that. And I don't think that's okay, I think that it is okay for individual voters to be Republicans, people who got tricked. But if you are a person with a platform, with reach, you need to fucking know better. And that goes out to the fucking Joe Roganses and Andrew Schultzes and Theo Vonses. It's like, you got 1 million fucking subscribers, you should know better than to fucking spread the shit that you guys are spreading. Dan Blackroyd says In-N-Out Burger isn't even that good. I would love to agree with you, Dan Blackroyd, but I'm fucking born and raised on In-N-Out Burgers, and I love them to death. Mia, great to see you again. Truth Seeker says, what do you think conservative goals are for Black Americans in the United States? Just the same as for everybody else in this country. They want to go back to the 1950s, where you could just lynch a black person if you wanted to. And, there was no legal recourse if you were a white person, and you could get an all-white jury, and the white jury would go, well, he was looking at that white lady very intimidatingly. Like, obviously they had to lynch that guy, But yeah, they want wage slaves, and they want to throw minorities in jail on trumped up charges, and then the prison labor will be free, just a new version of slavery, Dan Blacker says, yeah, as I was saying, it was a lie. You never miss, Dan Blackroyd. You got a fucking direct line to a target on me, man. Troy says, did Dewey defeat Truman? I don't know. Ragnar says, Jesus, bud, would love to hear how you came to that conclusion. Golly, how embarrassing. Oh, I don't know, Ragnar, just everything that I've ever seen Republicans say and do in my entire life. What do you think I said was inaccurate? I would love to elucidate you. I'm not here to fight, Ragnar, even though you came into my chat with a bunch of fucking attitude, take that attitude to a different fucking latitude, pal, because I'm just here to engage in good faith, and I believe that if you think that my, conclusions are incorrect, that I believe that you are getting your information from unreliable sources. Rena, who's Athena? Who's that? Is that like a right-wing troll account or something? Ragnar says, no one wants to lynch people of color. That's a wild accusation. It is wild to me that you think that people don't want to lynch people of color. Like, do you really think there's no racism left in America? Do you think the KKK doesn't exist anymore? Do you think people aren't currently getting lynched right now? Ragnar says, I don't even know who Athena is. Seems pretty sus. Rena's my best fucking mod, Ragnar. Are you calling her a liar? You are this close, my guy. Right. Bear Trap says it's literally happening currently. Yeah. So consider yourself sus, Ragnar. Are you willing to? Are you open to the idea that you might be wrong about this, Ragnar? Because if you're just here to fight, if you're just here to spread misinformation, then I'm gonna get you out of here. Because I don't really. That's not what this channel was about. Yeah, Ragnar, come on. I'm waiting for you, my guy. I'm waiting for a response. All right, everybody. We're at about an hour. So, just another reminder, this is the only show this week. I'll be traveling for a week and a half. You can catch me back here on the 25th. DMs are open. Email me through my website. Check out my Discord. The goal, the crusades. Ragnar says, I don't repost anything, and there's fringe beliefs people. That's not the whole of the rights. That's not what you said, Ragnar. Ragnar, you said no one wants to lynch people of color. Ragnar. What do you think about that, Ragnar? Now you're changing your statement. You know? Ragnar, can you acknowledge that people are getting lynched today still? Can you acknowledge that people want to lynch people of color still? Don Gordo Cabez says, any San Francisco Bay Area shows coming up in the works? Not right now. I'm kind of on a stand-up sabbatical right now. I'll be touring again starting in 2026. If I do any other shows, there will be one-offs mostly around Los Angeles. Yeah, Ragnar, I'm still waiting for you to admit that you were changing your statement there, my guy. Yeah, if you want to support the channel financially, guys, there are ways that you can do that, but you don't have to. You can join my Patreon, which you can find the link on my website in my bio. If, let's see here, you can buy things from my store, also, link in my bio. And you can send gifts and subscribe on TikTok and Twitch and YouTube and everything. Ragnar says, carry on with your disingenuous takes. Well, Ragnar, I'm here, man. I'm here to engage with you. You're clearly full of shit, my guy. Like, why are you punishing me for opening my arms and welcoming you to my channel and not just blocking you the second I figured out that you were full of shit, Ragnar? You know, you're breaking my heart, man. You're breaking my heart. See you later, pal. All right, everybody. Any final questions? Put them in now. And just lastly, my heartfelt plea that you do the work, because my worry increases every single day, you know? So yeah, I love those little crowns that somebody gave me. Thank you for all the gifts and everybody. Nostradamus says, ceasefire now, right? I mean, I'm for a ceasefire, but I'm not really sure if you're referencing anything specific. Jock Jam Door Slam says, what do you think the Trump administration will actually do with the homeless if they refuse to leave? Put them in work camps, put them in concentration camps, get free labor out of them. It is, yeah, it's just new slavery, you know? All right, everybody. Thank you again for being here. Do the work. Be good to each other. Be good to yourselves. Self-care is part of the work. But recruit. We need to get more people on board with this crusade. We are not going to have a good country until we unelect every Republican politician. We don't have to live like this. And we don't have to, we can have better if we just do the work, you know, and recognize that we are being lied to on these social media machines, guys. All right, everybody. So yeah, do the work. And I will see you guys next week on the 25th. Thank you for being here. It was a real fucking pain in the ass getting suspended for a week because somebody reported me for misinformation. That was not misinformation. That was accurate information. So yeah, I'm glad I'm back. I can't wait to see you guys again on the 25th. And yeah, check me back then. And have a great week, everybody. I hope that you have a good time and do the work and take care of yourselves already. All right, everybody. Goodbye. 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 Goodbye.